The film opens in 1973 at a mental institution where everyone except one man is found lifeless. The scene then cuts to 4 decades later in an institution called Green Park Clinic, where mentally ill patients are treated and taken care of. A newly recruited doctor named William is seen examining one of his significantly old patients named Millie in the institution. His examining session gets disturbed by another doctor named Lance, who brings to William's attention a group meeting of all the doctors with Emily, the woman who runs the place. In the meeting, Emily announces bringing in a new patient named Sam whom she has been trying to get institutionalized for years. For some reasons untold, Emily asks William to lead Sam's case under his supervision since he's from the big city. She hands a bucket full of papers to William and refers to it as Sam's file. Before leaving, William requests letting his colleagues Lance and Lucy be his helping hand, to which Emily carelessly agrees. Outside Emily's office, William volunteers to prepare Sam's room himself, but Lance and Lucy tell her to contact Jennifer, whose job is to manage and look for the patients and their needs. William approaches Jennifer, who's in the middle of giving an autistic young boy named Roman his medicine. Unintentionally, William aggravates his mental condition by showing up unannounced. Jennifer calms him down and hands him his meds before shutting the door on him. As she turns to William, he immediately apologizes for the inconvenience and gets straight to the point about having a room prepared for an incoming patient. Jennifer, who happens to take her job seriously, asks William to show her the transfer papers first. Luckily, William is still holding the paper bucket, so he dives into it and finds Sam's transfer papers. Jennifer takes it and leaves to get the work started on Sam's room. Moments later, Lance and Lucy show up to help William go through Sam's paperwork, but he gladly denies their help. However, he shares with them Sam's disturbing past, according to which Sam put 8 people in his institution 6 feet under and also took the doctor's life, who had given Sam a lobotomy. Disappointingly, William mumbles to himself that he's dealing with a patient whose memories have been tarnished due to lobotomy. Meanwhile, Lance and Lucy try to find out what caused William to move from New York to a small place in Texas, but William stays private about his life. In the next scene, Jennifer approaches the male nurses, Billy and Bishop, a very interestingly argumentative duo. She tells the boys to reopen room 4 and prepare it since a new patient is arriving at their facility. Bishop and Billy are astonished to hear about the reopening of room 4, but they choose to stay silent on this matter. The scene once again spins back to Dr. William, who visits Emily to get an update on the arrangement of a guest house that was offered to him along with the job. Spinning the subject, Emily tells him to take a guest room in the institution's west wing instead. When William becomes disappointed and tries to ask her the reason behind her reluctance to provide him a guest house, she opens up about doing a background check on him and not finding a single reason why he moved to a conservative and small place in Texas, whereas he could have lived a lavish life back in New York, a place of opportunity and success. Here, William finally opens up about his past and his regrets about losing his wife in a car accident, right after he argued with her and threw a glass at her. His rage scared his wife into getting out of the house and going on a car ride, where she ended up in an accident so severe that she had to be hospitalized. Despite her condition being serious, the surgeons weren't anywhere near the hospital, as William believes that his argument with his wife was fake, and none of the stuff he had said was truly meant. He reaches the verge of tearing up, so he requests Emily to never talk about this with him. Emily apologizes to him and stays quiet. However, William still ends up in Green Park's guest room where he regretfully looks at his wife's picture that's placed in his wallet. The next morning, Bishop and Billy are seen preparing room number 4, and discussing that they've monitored weird things happening in this room before. Astonishingly, Sam arrives hours prior to his schedule. Jennifer welcomes Sam, who happens to be sitting in a wheelchair, and signs some forms that are sent by Sam's previous institution, through the guy who is sent to drop Sam at Green Park. Jennifer tries to speak with Sam, but the old man remains silent. Jennifer immediately calls Bishop and Billy, and orders them to take Sam to his room, which is on the 2nd floor. The boys try to lift Sam's wheelchair near the staircase, but they find Sam too heavy to be lifted. Much to their shock, Sam gets up from the wheelchair and walks the tall stairs all by himself. As the boys leave him alone in his new room, Sam gets violent flashbacks of him being tackled and injected by a group of nurses and doctors. Soon, William, Lucy, and Lance show up in Sam's room and try to ask him some basic questions, but they fail to get a single word out of him since he's been lobotomized. Although, Sam excitingly tells them about the boats he likes to draw. Sam ends up requesting to see his actual doctors, but unbeknownst to the lobotomized old man, his doctors have passed away ages ago. Now, William and his fellows walk out of his room while discussing he's a tough case to crack. Lucy encourages William to take the opportunity to solve Sam's untold story and get published in the journal article. For some reason, Lance acts strange around William and sarcastically tells him he'll be in the movies if he solves Sam's case. Here, a strange conversation takes place between the three when Lucy starts asking about Sam's files. William states that he's found nothing but a crossword puzzle in the files, since most of the stuff is missing or not told in the files. Lucy doesn't get enough juice out of this, so she asks William about Sam's previous institution, where he was first admitted. William speaks of Stephen's sanitarium and asks if she happens to know anything about this place. Lucy carelessly replies and tells William that she hasn't heard of it, since such small institutes keep coming and going from time to time. William gets suspicious and is quick to point out Lucy's last statement. He asks Lucy how she knows Stevens used to be a small institute. That's when Lance jumps in and cleverly covers for Lucy, saying that they were only assuming it to be a small institute because if it was a big institute, they would have heard about it in the news. However, their awkward conversation is put to an end when the autistic boy, Roman, shows up unsupervised in the hallways. The following day, William takes his recorder and sits down to record his diagnosis of Sam's current state, according to which Sam is 72 years old but he has the mentality of a 10-year-old, and he has been non-responsive to William's treatment due to his past lobotomy that was performed by Dr. Stephen, whom Sam butchered later. After the massacre at the Stevens Sanitarium, Sam was sent to state, and since then, there has been no record of him. The next day, William, Lucy, and Lance are treating their patients. Whereas William and Lucy are kindly treating their patients, Lance treats his patient Clive very poorly and unprofessionally during lunchtime. Clive keeps repeating that he's not insane and that he must have a cigarette to get better. At one point, Lance loses his calm and starts stuffing his cigarette in Clive's mouth, causing him pain and humiliation. This is noted by another lady patient, but Lance rudely tells her to focus on her food. His maniac behavior raises suspicions and hints that a lot of mystery is yet to be unfolded. Subsequently, another doctor named Westmore visits Green Park to specifically treat Millie, William's demented patient. Westmore injects an unknown substance into one of Millie's eyeballs and ends up imagining being attacked by the opposing entity who has opened fire from outside the building. He falls on the floor and keeps screaming they are coming until Jennifer and the male nurses arrive and take him away. When Lucy delivers the devastating news to Lance and William, it strikes an argument between the two, where William suggests taking notes on Westmore's mental health and having him treated in the facility. Lance opposes him bluntly, claiming Westmore is a brilliant doctor who should not be treated like a patient. Lance suggests that someone must have spiked his drink to sabotage him, but William keeps emphasizing on getting him treated, or else he'll end up harming people around him. Hearing this, Lance agrees to keep him as a patient for 24 hours only. Before leaving, he reminds William that he does not work under him, yet still he's listening to him. Simultaneously, Sam bumps into him, claiming to tell him something very important. While William shows concerns about Sam getting out of his room unsupervised, Lance stops Sam from saying anything in front of William and takes him back to his room, where he can tell him whatever he's been trying to tell. As Lance leaves with Sam, William tells Lucy about Lance's frequent sneaking into Sam's room and his attempts to be closer to him to impress Emily. When Lucy questions his assumption, William reveals that he used to do the same thing in the past, so he knows what Sam is exactly up to. Following this, Bishop and Billy are seen having lunch where they reopen their debate on whether or not to tell the doctors that Sam's arrival has triggered some strange happenings in their facility. As they are deciding on telling their concerns to Jennifer, she overhears her name and scolds them for mentioning her name. When she leaves, William shows up and asks the duo if they've seen Lance after he went upstairs, but the duo claims not seeing Lance after that. Worrisome, William tells the nurses to keep him updated if they see Lance, and also requests them to tell Lance that he's looking for him. Following this, he goes to Jennifer's office to ask about Lance, but like Westmore, she envisions someone else's past in which a woman's baby is brutally being taken away from her. She immediately snaps out of the vision and tells William about Sam taking the day off and going home early. Being suspicious of Lance, William storms away. Later that night, William tries to find any news on Stevens Sanitarium, but much to his disappointment, he doesn't find anything related to it. As he continues to work, he gets a call from Lucy, who happens to be drunk and flirty. She desperately asks William to join her and have some fun rather than work on Sam's case. William politely declines her offer and gets back to work, but sadly he finds nothing about the old institution. The next morning, Lance and William sit together and find out how Lucy desperately tried to hit on them last night, while asking to join her in a bar, but coincidentally both refused. When Lucy arrives, she denies having called the two. William excuses the two and goes to have a word with Emily, since she had summoned him. Back with Lance alone, Lucy claims she doesn't remember anything about last night, and that she never gets drunk, let alone calling two dudes and desperately trying to hit on them. Now, Emily asks for Sam's status report from William, but William brings in her notice that there was nothing extraordinary in the files that could help him crack what exactly happened to Sam. He requests Emily to provide more information on Stevens Sanitarium, but Emily changes the subject and tries to dismiss the current talks. When William shares his concerns about Lance sneaking into Sam's room, and speaks of his suspicions about Lance trying to influence Sam, Emily becomes agitated and announces to give away two of his patients to Lance and Lucy so that he can focus more on Sam's case and not weave weird theories. William apologizes and requests Emily to not take away his patients, but she doesn't listen to him and dismisses the chat. Now, things get intense in Green Park when the autistic kid, Roman, gets possessed by an entity and attacks another patient in the bathroom. By the time William hears the screams and runs to the bathroom, he finds Roman chewing off his victim's face with his bare hands and mouth. William immediately calls for help and has Roman strapped to a medical bed. Here, Bishop and Billy reveal to William the strange happenings that have been happening ever since Sam's arrival, before they proceed to answer more of William's questions. The scene shifts to Lucy, who has become devastated to find out what Roman did. Lance catches her smoking a cigarette on a balcony, which is unusual, so he stops by and gives her company. For a moment, she shares with Lance about her gut feelings that she does not believe Roman could do such a thing, but Lance sides with Roman and believes that it is natural for people to go against their will. Lucy finds Lance very changed and stops sharing her thoughts with him. He then tries to brainwash Lucy against William for some reason, but Lucy expresses that she finds William more sensible and that she feels like she can trust him more than Lance. With that being said, she walks away from him. Back on William's side, he finds out from the nurses that Park Green's old name used to be Stevens Sanitarium. This explains why William wasn't getting any information about the institution online. Currently, William's grounds are shaken to the core hearing this, so he barges into Emily's office and yells at her for not telling her the truth and disclosing full details on Sam. On top of that, he rages out at Emily for putting Sam in the same room where the tragedy had happened back in 1972, which is very devious of her. Emily doesn't confess to anything and tells him to get out of her office. Before he leaves, he asks Emily about what's in the basement. She becomes irritated with the questions and tells him that the facility uses it as a storage unit and there are things stored that are of no use to them at the current time. Since Emily is of no help, William goes to see Sam and tries to ask him if he remembers anything that had happened in the past. He also asks him if he remembers Dr. Steven. Sam states the obvious that's coming ahead of them, but poor William is unable to figure it out. Sam says that everyone who was eliminated is coming, because Dr. Steven says so. In the meantime, Bishop and Billy have trouble opening the back door, so Billy sends Bishop to get spare keys from Jennifer. When Bishop goes to Jennifer's room, he finds her looking at him in a weird manner. Unbeknownst to him, Jennifer has been possessed by one of the ghosts of the people who were butchered back in 1972. This indicates that the same must have happened with Roman, otherwise he was too innocent to hurt someone. On the other hand, the disturbed Lucy is approached by Lance's patient, Clive, in her office. He gives her his full attention and apologizes to her for feeling the way she's feeling right now because of what Roman did. Things go down with Lucy when she visits someone else's memories of not being loved, despite her constant requests. In the same way as Jennifer and Roman, she gets possessed by the ghost of a patient from 1972 and envisions the ghost's past where she desires to be loved. She ends up making love with Clive, thinking of the long-lost desire to be loved to be finally coming true, which is not her reality. Moments later, William knocks on her door, but when she doesn't open it, William opens the door himself since it's urgent, but he immediately shuts it back when he catches Lucy dressing up in front of Clive, which indicates she got laid. Back on William's side, he finds Sam of no use and goes back to his room, but finds the door jammed. There, the worrisome Billy approaches him and speaks of Bishop's disappearance. William tells him to search everywhere in the facility, and he goes to talk to Emily about this situation. At the office, William finds Emily in a hallucinating state during which she continuously chants and claims that she shouldn't have brought Sam back. Since Emily is also getting visions of someone else's past, she realizes she's going to get possessed soon, so she ends up doing William a favor and spills out her dirty secret. Emily mumbles gibberish, in which she refers to Sam as a hero and Dr. Steven's favorite patient, which is why she wanted to bring him back to Green Park and help fix him after he was lobotomized. Much to William's confusion, she confesses to putting Dr. Steven 6 feet under and claims that Sam never committed any murder back in 1972. On the other hand, Billy finds Bishop in Jennifer's arms. She happens to be possessed by an old patient's ghost, who thinks Bishop is her son. Billy plays along and tells Jennifer to get diapers for the baby. And as she gets up to grab the diapers, Billy sits down and takes Bishop in his arms and uses his facial expressions to ask whatever has been going on. Back on Emily's side, she has panic attacks while revealing to William the real story of Stevens Sanitarium. She says that Dr. Stevens had a specific way of dealing with his patients. He treated his patients' insanity with obsession theory, which went wrong. The patients went rogue, but Sam didn't have any obsessions, so he stayed fine. However, Sam kept warning Emily to leave the place because it had become too dangerous, but she didn't consider his warnings and ended up getting chased by a patient who tried taking her life back when she was a nurse working under Steven. As she ran away from the lunatic, she stumbled upon a body and thought it was the same psycho that had been chasing her. She managed to grab Sam's toy boat, which was randomly lying on the ground, and stabbed the body, only to realize that she stabbed Stevens. Sam showed up soon enough and helped Emily get out of the situation. Emily feels regretful for framing Sam for the entire massacre where patients had butchered one another. William has a hard time believing this because Emily's name was never mentioned in Sam's files. She reveals that she had changed her name and wiped all of her documents from Sam's case. In the end, she hands him a confidential bag containing the real story of what happened at the Stevens Sanitarium and takes by jabbing her sharp pen and slitting it open. William becomes horrified by the scene and runs away from there to find other doctors. On the other hand, Billy slaps the living hell out of Jennifer's face, which brings her back to life. She curses the nurses for slapping her and demands an explanation, but since they're short on time, they grab her and flee her office. William also runs back to his room, where he witnesses his bed sheet soaking in his deceased wife's blood, because she happens to be lying under the sheets. Before William can process what he's just seen, Jennifer and the nurses come to his doorstep for help. When William looks back at his bed, he finds his deceased wife gone, hinting that it was an illusion projected by the ghosts. Now, all the doctors gather up and William shows them the confidential file Emily had been hiding and tells them how the ghosts are haunting the new patients and doctors just so history can repeat itself. The place turns into a fish market when everyone states their opinions on this issue all at once. Jennifer finally comes up with a fine solution which suggests splitting up and sedating all the patients to prevent the ghosts from possessing them. Sadly, it's too late. When Bishop and Billy show up at Roman's room to sedate him, they find him being devoured by another female patient, who happens to be possessed. She tries to attack them, but they immediately shut the door and run away without sedating the possessed patient. On the other hand, William and Jennifer approach Clive, who ends up attacking Jennifer, but William takes control and succeeds in sedating Clive and moves on to the next patient. Meanwhile, Lucy and Lance visit Millie. Instead of sedating the patient, Lance sedates Lucy, revealing his evil side. He then bumps into the rest of the team in the hallway and tells them he had to sedate Lucy because she got out of her senses. Now, Lance takes Jennifer with him. William goes to check on Sam and tells the nurses to check the basement. Despite hating the basement, the nurses go down and end up being attacked by Westmore, who's been possessed already. In the end, Billy expires due to the attack, but Bishop overpowers Westmore and takes his life. Meanwhile, Lance shows Jennifer a doll which triggers the ghost's memories that have taken over her and Jennifer becomes possessed once again. Meanwhile, William gets some words out of Sam and finds out Stevens has been visiting Sam even though he perished decades ago. When Sam points at the basement and confesses to dark things that have happened down there, William leaves Sam unattended and runs back to the basement. On the other side, Bishop shows up with an axe and finds Jennifer possessed, so he holds her and takes her to a safe place in case she doesn't go rogue. When William goes into the basement, he finds Lance strapping Lucy to a medical bed and using weird tools to harm her while she's still sedated. When William tries to put some sense in him, he injects him with a sedative, due to which William loses mobility but manages to stay conscious. Here, he connects the dots and realizes that Lance has been possessed by Stevens, who is trying to justify his corrupt methods and ideologies about insane people. Stevens finds the terminology insane very insulting and believes it stops people from doing their best. In an attempt to prove himself, he stabs Lucy and takes her life. Soon, Sam shows up in the basement where Stevens tries to send him back, but William reveals Stevens' dark side and how he's butchered and possessed everyone in Green Park. Stevens also speaks in his defense and tries to influence Sam, but when both shout at Sam at once, he gets confused and pushes Stevens away, resulting in him getting poked in the chest by a medal that's hanging out of the wall. As Lance expires, Stevens' ghost perishes along with it. The film ends with William restarting everything and treating Sam to a trip in which he's testing out his boat in the river.